In 2022, the Miyoo Mini came out of nowhere and completely took over the retro handhelds community. It led to the creation of one of the best custom firmwares available, as well as countless modding options. However, it was always difficult to get, and due to supply issues, Miyoo will no longer be making it. However, we do have the Miyoo Mini Plus in its place. But is this a worthy successor to the Miyoo Mini, or are you better off looking at other options? So let's talk a little bit about the specs. It runs on Linux. It has a Cortex A7 1.2 GHz CPU, a 3.5-inch 640x480 IPS screen, 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi, a 3000 mAh battery that should last you about 4 to 5 hours, and it charges over USB Type-C. Now let's talk about the device itself. On the side, we have our volume rocker. Up top, we have our power button, some LED light indicators. On the bottom, we have our SD card slot, our headphone jack, and our Type-C port. The D-pad feels very good and responsive. It's soft but not mushy, and with a good amount of travel. Same thing for the face buttons. They're not clicky, but they're not mushy either, and they have a good amount of travel, and they don't get flush with the shell itself. Start, select, and the menu button all have a nice little click to them, even though they do have a rubber pad underneath. And the shoulder buttons have been improved with different heights, and they stick out from the device a little bit more, but not too much where they're going to be caught in your pockets. They have a nice soft click to them, and even though they are better than they used to be, I did still have some issues with them. Just getting to the L and R buttons can be a little bit hard because of the size of the device and just the way you have to hold it. It can be a little bit annoying, but that can just be remapped so that L2 R2 function as L1 R1, so not a huge deal. Now here, comparing it to the Miyoo Mini, you can see there's a clear size difference, but the buttons, D-pad, everything stayed the same. So the feel is going to be the exact same on both of them, and if that's something you enjoyed about the Miyoo Mini, you're going to feel right at home here. But it is going to be a chunkier device. You can see here it's taller, it is thicker by a good amount, I would say, but overall when you're holding it, it doesn't feel that big. It does feel sturdy, but it's not going to be as pocket friendly as the Miyoo Mini was, of course. Taking a look back here, you can see there's a huge difference in the battery size. Unfortunately, that doesn't mean you're going to have a lot more battery life, because this screen does use up more power, so you do end up with about 4 to 5 hours battery life, which is about on average with what you would get with the Miyoo Mini 2. Overall, I would say both feel great in the hand, but I do have to say the Plus is a little bit more comfortable. And even though this isn't going to be the case for everybody, I did find that you can still play one-handed with the Plus if you stretch your thumb a little bit. I know this is a weird thing, but it's one of those things that once you've done it, it's kind of hard to not want to do it again. It's just so convenient to just be able to grab it in one hand to play some RPGs and catch some Pokemon, do some grinding. It's just a good time. One other thing I will say is the Plus does feel a lot sturdier. Unfortunately, the Miyoo Mini was very easy to break, as you can see here with one of my other minis that fell about 2, maybe 3 feet onto my padded desk, so it didn't even hit the ground, and the screen just died on me. So thankfully, the Plus seems like it's going to hold up a lot better. Now let's talk about the stock software experiences. This is what you're going to be getting out of the box. And overall, it's not as bad as a lot of other Chinese handhelds. We have our recent buttons tab, which is going to show games that you've been playing recently, or your favorites. You have to add them yourself. Your games, which are going to be separated. We have a RetroArch option. To be fair, I'm not sure what the point of this is. I didn't spend a whole lot of time using the stock OS just because I wasn't able to do a lot of the things that I'm used to being able to do using my Miyoo Mini. So I just didn't mess with that too much. Over here on apps, we have RetroArch again, and here is where you actually go if you want to adjust things in RetroArch. So it just makes the other option more confusing to me, which I'm sure if I spent some time with, I would figure it out, but I didn't really want to deal with that. Brightness, the screen does get nice and bright, maybe a little too bright for nighttime playing, but nothing bad. Unfortunately, Wi-Fi is just something I was not able to get working on this device. It could find my networks, I just couldn't connect to any of them, which is unfortunate. You have color options on the screen, so now you can adjust saturation, contrast, things like that, so you can get it just the way you want it if you want those colors to pop a little bit more. Here you can remap keys just in case they're not doing what you want them to do, or you want them to set up a specific way. You could go in here and just change them all into B like I'm doing right now. I would not recommend doing this at all, so let's just remap that real quick and not save this. You can also adjust the volume for the menu music. I just turned that right off because I didn't want to deal with it. Here we can change our theme. So if you want it to look like you have Onion, but you don't want to install Onion, you can do it. Or if you wanted to have an Evangelion theme, you know, it's just nice to have all these options right out of the gate, and you don't have to add any of this. So overall, I would say stock firmware isn't terrible, but it's just not as good as it could be. I got this mini from Go Game Geek, and they sent a 64 gift card just packed with games. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be using any of those because they're organized in the worst possible way by putting numbers before the actual title, so that really sucks. For some reason, every time I would try to play a Game Boy Advance game, I would get this weird flickering on the screen, and it was only with Game Boy Advance, and it wasn't just this one game. I actually tried quite a few, and it would do it in all of them, so I'm not sure what was going on with there because the screen is working just fine. So here I'm with a Game Boy game and no issues on the screen, so not sure what was going on there. It is nice to see that you get these bezels already pre-installed, and each system is going to have a specific one if it doesn't use up the whole screen, so that is very nice to see. It's just unfortunate that for some reason the games just weren't running the way they should. If you press the menu button, you're going to have a few options like save, load, native menu. So if you need to adjust anything, that's where you're going to be going into, or if you just want to save state or load a state. So it's very convenient to have that little button right there. Just press it and the options just pop right up. Now for some reason the Mini kept doing this weird thing when it would switch into the Onion theme, even though I'm not using the OnionOS SD card. But overall, the experience on stock firmware just wasn't what I wanted. It's not terrible, I've seen way worse, but you definitely want to load up Onion. So let's do that right now and give this thing a fair shot. So now we have Onion installed, and keep in mind this isn't a finished product, it's still being worked on, but it's still substantially better than what you're going to get from stock. Now while I was installing Onion, I went ahead and took the time to install the better buttons for it too, because even though the buttons of the Mini are improved, these are still better in my opinion. So I'm a big fan of better buttons. If they're available for any device, I want them on there. These are clickier. They use a spring, so it just feels better to press down on. Even though I'm not the biggest fan of super clicky buttons, these are just really good. I highly recommend them, and I'll do a quick guide video how to install them. It's very easy. If you get a chance, pick some up. Okay, now even though it looks like not much has changed, the experience is way better on OnionOS. You have your favorites, you have your games, which they're going to be divided by system. You have your apps. Here is where you would go if you want to add or remove systems. You're actually going to be prompted to do this when you first load it up, but you go to package manager, and there you're going to have all the cores. You just select which ones you want to install, and then they're just going to populate, and you just drop your games in there. We have our settings over here, so they're going to be very similar to what you already saw, and unfortunately I still had the same Wi-Fi issue. I'm starting to think there's something wrong with my unit, because I checked the password on my Wi-Fi, I checked it on the devices and it was working. I just couldn't get it to work on this device for some reason, so I'm not sure what's going on with that. I really hope I can figure this out, because it was one of the big highlights of the Mini Plus, and I feel like I'm not giving it a fair shot, but I tried, so I can't really do much more than that. So once you get into a game, if you notice it's running slow, we can try other cores, and we'll get into that here in a second, which should be able to give you the performance you want. So don't worry if the game's initially running slow, we can fix it. There are some other hotkeys here, so if we press menu and select, we're going to go to the RetroArch settings. If we go menu and start, you're going to be able to switch your aspect ratio, so you can adjust it on the fly. No need to go into settings and do all that complicated stuff. Just press a couple buttons. If you press menu and R1, you're going to fast forward. If you go L1, you're going to go to rewind. If you go R1, R2, you're going to load and save a state. So if you have a game that isn't running well, like in the case of Final Fantasy VI on GBA, all you have to do is go to the game, press Y, and you're going to be able to switch cores. I find that going to GPSP gives me a lot better performance. It's not as accurate, but the game will run a lot faster. As you can see here, I switched it, and now I'm hitting a solid 60 where I wasn't able to do that before. And if I fast forward, it goes up to 190, 160, it averages around there. So there's a lot of overhead to be able to run the game a lot faster. So depending on how you like to play these games and what you prioritize, this is something that can be very helpful. And personally, I'm really happy it's that easy to do it. I hope other OSs follow suit pretty soon. So I didn't want to turn this into an onion video, but it's just hard not to. This is just one of those times where the firmware is ingrained into the device and you can't talk about it without talking about the other. So sorry, I know it's been covered. I know others have done it better than I just did, but I just wanted to make sure I touched on it a little bit. Now, compare this to the Mini. Yeah, I'd say it holds up. You can't really go wrong either way. The Mini is extremely hard to find, and you're probably going to be paying a premium for it, so I wouldn't stress too much about even tracking one down. If you're able to find one at a decent price, go for it. It's a great collector's piece. It's a great little device. But if you don't want to deal with that, just go ahead and pick up a Plus. It's a great handheld. It has a lot of things in common with the Mini, so you're not really missing out on a lot other than that size. But it wouldn't be fair to do this video without comparing it to its biggest current competition. So let's talk a little bit about how the Mini Plus stacks up to the 35XX. Size wise, the Mini Plus is going to be a more compact system, but that doesn't necessarily make it better. Personally, I find the 35XX to be a little bit more comfortable because of that little bit of extra chin. It's not a huge difference in size, but it's just enough to make it a little bit more comfortable when I'm holding it. See, when I grab the Mini Plus, my bottom fingers feel like they're floating around, whereas when I grab the 35XX, I feel like I have a little bit more device to grab onto. I still can't really clamp onto them like I would with the 351V, but it's just a little bit better on the 35XX. Now, back buttons, stock, the Mini Plus is going to be better, but I have better buttons on both of them, so it's kind of a wash at this point. If you're not going to mod them that way, definitely the Mini Plus is going to be more comfortable as far as the bat buttons are concerned. Overall, you can't really go wrong with either one, but one thing to keep in mind is that 35XX is more powerful, so you will be able to run a little bit more on it than what you're going to be able to do on the Mini Plus. So overall, the Miyoo Mini leaves some pretty big shoes to fill, but I can say the Mini Plus is definitely up to the task. It's a great little handheld, it's sturdier, the screen looks great, and with those very slim bezels and that smaller chin, the screen just really pops at you. Now, I know I did say earlier that I preferred the taller chin at the 35XS, but just from a purely aesthetic point, the Miyoo Mini Plus is just a beautiful handheld. Now, you are missing out on the novelty of the tiny, overpowered Game Boy that the Miyoo Mini is, but you're gaining Wi-Fi, you're gaining a better screen, you're gaining a more readily available device, and you're not missing out on the Miyoo Mini experience. Sure, again, it's going to be a little bit bigger, but everything's still there. The charm of it, the look, the aesthetics of the Mini are still present here in what I consider to be a better overall package. Sure, my unit itself has some issues, issues that I really hope I can resolve, because I really did enjoy using this handheld. It was just those little details that I need to figure out. Not sure what it is with the Wi-Fi, but I'm pretty confident it's something I can fix. There was some issues with stock when it first released, but it seems like that's been taken care of, and there's going to be some links down below, so if you want to pick it on Amazon, which I would highly recommend, I know you can be paying a little bit more, but you get that peace of mind that if anything goes wrong, you can return the device and you can get it a lot faster without having to wait weeks without an update, and it's a better experience. Pay that extra 15-20 bucks, trust me, it's worth it. So just to finish it up, is the Miyoo Mini Plus worth it? Yes. Is it a good successor to the Miyoo Mini? Yes. Should you get one? Of course. Now, if you already have a Mini, should you upgrade? I would say yes. Take that Mini, put it somewhere safe, and just look at it and enjoy it, because if anything happens to that little guy, that's going to be a wrap. Sourcing parts for it is going to be next to impossible, so take care of it. It's a collection piece now. Luckily, you're going to have a better Mini to play with, the Mini Plus. So yeah, definitely pick one up if you're a collector, if you're curious, if you're an enthusiast. This is a good one to add to the collection. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I know I didn't get a lot into emulation and the usual testing that I like to do in these videos, but the Mini is just a known commodity at this point, so I didn't want to beat a dead horse and just get into something that we all know what you can do. I just wanted to talk about the experience, the overall build, and just present the Miyoo Mini Plus. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you'll join me again next time, and have a great day. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you like the video. It helps a lot. I hate doing this at the end of videos because it just feels like I'm trying to shill, but seriously, we appreciate it, and that like really helps a lot.